You were in a GP clinic, an ED or a hospital room. You finally get seen and you watch every bit of medical kit, reusable or not, being biffed, headed for the tip. But a Kiwi company now has an answer to this.
MedSalv does what no other company in the Southern Hemisphere does. It takes 50 single-use medical devices and remanufactures them, putting them back into hospitals and clinics at a lower cost than buying brand new.
This saves a lot of money for healthcare providers, like a lot, and creates jobs, many of them for people with barriers to employment. If the whole country got on board, one estimate suggests it could prevent 1,700 tonnes of medical waste going to landfills a year and generate $100 million in savings. So why is Australia backing this Kiwi company more than, it seems, our own government?
MedSalv's good fortune has been thanks to the support and funding from Victoria's state government, and the plant is based in Geelong.
And for so long, Pharmac hasn't been on board.
While it operates in some hospitals in New Zealand, MedSalv is struggling to get its remanufactured products onto Pharmac's hospital medical devices list.
Pharmac's model is completely wrong.
They need to think really hard about how we get value for money, and they need to be innovative when they think about assessment and procurement. However, I've also said it's clearly their job to independently make these decisions.
But finally, this month, this changed.
Now, the good news here is Pharmac's finally accepted their products onto our medical device list. Has it been an arduous journey with Pharmac?
Kia ora, I'm Amanda Gillies, and to answer that question and discuss reusing medical equipment, its successes and failures, and the future, today on The Detail I am joined by the man and brains behind MedSalv.
My name is Oliver Hunt, and I'm the founder and chief executive officer at MedSalv.
And I want to start by saying, I guess, congratulations, because you finally have Pharmac on board. Why has this taken so long? How tough has this journey been for you?
It has taken a long time, and it has been exceptionally difficult. The reason that it's happened this way is because the way Pharmac contracted medical devices was to start, they wanted to look at contracting every device used in the country, to start with one category, and then once that category was sewn up, not revisit it until the list is finished. Now, they've just sort of accelerated the list, but the last part of the list is uncontracted items. So for that whole period of time, it's been really hard to get a new product contracted because those contracts haven't revisited the market.
So, just so we are clear here, Pharmac has a list of contracted medical supplies and devices, and then a list of products that aren't contracted.
So we are on a list, but we are not on a contracted list. So the products that we've put through don't have a price next to them. The next step for us is to get a contract with whoever the contracting entity becomes.
So it's a kind of a win for you. How would you describe it?
I think it's a step in the right direction, and it's good to show people the value of the products that we're delivering, but there are more steps to happen.
In a moment, he will talk us through those steps, and we will hear from Dr. Ruth Spearing, who isn't impressed with Pharmac's actions.
I was a clinical haematologist for many decades, and I just look at just the amount of waste that goes to the landfill, the amount of money that is wasted. It is just horrendous. And any company which can reduce that wastage and reduce its expenditure should be being supported and not blocked in the way that Pharmac has consistently blocked Oliver's company. It is such a shame.
More from Ruth soon, but first, Oliver's business, what he actually does and how he started.
So I needed a project for my master's in engineering management, and I was having a conversation with my uncle on the eve of the 2017 election about healthcare. And the conversation was along the lines of what happens if they get in and what happens to the health budget. And he said, it's not the money we're spending, it's where we're spending it. And that led to a conversation around a box full of expired medical devices. And he said, you should figure out a way to re-sterilise or clean these and get them back into the health system. That could be your project. So I went to the hospital down the road, and I talked to the clinicians and said, all right, what do you think? do you think this could happen, and what product would you start with? What do you think is most relevant? And actually ended up building a process for a very different product. So that's what got me started. That was 2017. And then the leadership at the Canterbury District Health Board really bought into it, and they championed the idea, and we got a trial, which was awesome because we got that opportunity to work with the clinicians on the ground, the people who use the products, to optimise and to generate significant cost savings. So that's what started it, and I was fortunate to have the support of the University of Canterbury's summer startup program. And that was 7.5 years ago.
He's since been described as having the heart of a doctor and the brain of an engineer. He says his business is a weird social enterprise to run, but it works.
We remanufacture single-use medical devices. So these are devices that would otherwise go to landfill after one use at a hospital. So we collect them from the hospital, clean them, test them, inspect them, replace where we can components if they're broken, repackage them, and then return them to them for reuse. They come back at a lower cost. We provide employment for people facing barriers to employment in the process. There's less emissions, less waste, and we do it onshore, so it's a local supply chain too.
What sort of money are you talking about that you're saving?
Well, for one company, there's two types of savings here. So there's the first saving is the direct cost saving, which is how much our product costs compared to what the original cost. And that might be up to 60%. But then there's also the indirect saving, and that's the one that comes from competition. And so we had one massive American company drop their prices in some hospitals from nearly $100, or in one case above that, to down less than 20 to compete with us. And we can still beat that price. So, we create some quite significant benefits for the health system and for the hospitals and for the people that we provide employment to as well.
And what sort of equipment are we talking about? What are these single-use things? What can you reuse and what are off limits?
Well, there's a range of devices that we can remanufacture. The challenges are really around how many are used, how much do they cost, and how complex are they. The ones that we've chosen at the moment are what I would consider the low-hanging fruit. And, there's plenty more that we could do there. And creating that innovative or environment to adopt that innovation in New Zealand is really critical to us doing that in New Zealand.
When you say low-hanging fruit, what sort of things are we talking about?
Well, those products that we're currently doing in New Zealand. So the DVT sleeves, deep vein thrombosis prevention sleeves, patient transfer mattresses, products like that, they're kind of the low-hanging fruit. And there's plenty more that you could go into, like invasive devices. But obviously, we need to get the first cab off the rank first.
What about quality control? What's in place so these products are cleaned properly so they are returned and repackaged in pristine condition?
All of our products are subject to the same regulatory scrutiny as the original products would be. And if we look at the Australian regulatory context, because that's a bit more mature than New Zealand's. So they have to comply with all of the essential principles just like any other device. But operationally what that looks like is we're doing around 9 inspections per device, including functional inspections, to check that they actually do the job that they're meant to do. We're marking each of the devices. Some of those devices get just a branding mark. Most of them get a mark that has a barcode that we can use to track the number of uses it's got on it. And all of those things are being done to the same standard regardless of the number of uses of the device, which is really important because we don't necessarily know what's happened to it while it's been in the hospital.
Have you had any failures or had any safety issues over the years at all?
No, we haven't. So we've had, some labelling issues where the wrong label's gone on a product, but we've never had something that could have resulted in a patient injury or damage to a clinician.
What about there's the ick factor? Like with people thinking I'm going to be having reused medical equipment, how do you get around that? And do patients actually know they're having equipment that is reused?
Well, sometimes even the people in the hospital don't know that the product's been remanufactured because it's very difficult to tell, say, for looking at the markings on the product itself. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, as I mentioned, they have to comply with the same essential principles. The third thing is, the only thing that makes a single-use product go to the bin, for the products that we deal with at least, is the fact that they're labelled single-use. That's a choice by the manufacturer. And they might do it because they believe that the product can't be safely used more than once, but for our products it's because they haven't done the studies required to show it can be labelled as reusable, nor provided that information to the hospital. So these are products that are just single-use by label, but by nature, if you actually do the work, they can be reused.
How do hospitals feel about that? By saying, you just said that they might not know that it is reused, remanufactured medical equipment. What sort of response are you getting from hospitals on that front?
Well, the hospital itself will always know that it's remanufactured because that's the only thing that we really sell. But what I mean by that is that the clinician in the field, we've had at least one instance where they've said, we're not using that product or your products, and we've pointed out that the product behind them on the bed is one of our products.
How do they respond to that?
Oh, well, we've had no issues, so no worries. So it's positive. But the final point on that is almost every hospital in the world uses reusable equipment, and that must be cleaned and must be tested and it must be repackaged and sterilised usually, if it's sterile, before it gets back to the patient. And so really, we do all of the same kinds of things, but we're also testing the product as well because we're the manufacturer of record. So it's not actually that confronting when you consider all of those things.
Who is checking your work? Who's keeping you in line?
Well, it depends. We have a number of certifications, which we're really proud of. So the first one and the most relevant from that area is ISO 13485. So we hold that certification for both of our facilities, Australia and New Zealand, and our quality system. And that's everything that we do about designing the devices and producing them through to selling them and so on and so forth. Manufacturing, remanufacturing, distribution, manufacture, etc. We're also a B Corp.
A B Corp, well, it's essentially a company that demonstrates high social and environmental performance and exhibits social transparency.
So we're the highest scoring B Corp in New Zealand, last time I checked. We're a social enterprise, so we're accredited as a social enterprise in Australia. We're net zero, so net carbon zero, and we're climate positive, which means we offset 120% of our gross emissions as well. So each one of those certifications means someone is coming and checking our work against that dimension that they're looking for in some way.
For these reasons, he wants his remanufactured products on Pharmac's main contracted list for medical device suppliers. The list ensures that Health New Zealand hospitals will consider the products for use, and there's no need to run a primary procurement process. Pharmac told The Detail contracts for medical devices are generally evergreen, meaning they don't have an end date, and this helps to secure the best deals with a wide range of suppliers. And that the latest comprehensive list, effective from July 1st, brings greater transparency to what's used and funded in public hospitals.
Pharmac says it has a well-laid-out procurement process, ensuring it's fair, open and competitive.
Well, not so, according to Dr. Ruth Spearing, who's written about the issue in the press and has supported Oliver Hunt in his attempts to pierce Pharmac's armour.
Pharmac's model is completely wrong in so much as it deals with the big international device companies and gives them very long contracts and also gives them contracts with fixed amounts. So there's no ability of Health New Zealand to actually become more efficient and decrease purchases because those companies have fixed amounts that they have been contracted to sell by Pharmac to Health New Zealand. So the model is completely wrong. And any way to try to break into that model has been just seemingly impossible.
Oliver seems to have got on a list, but it's an uncontracted list, not on the main list. What's your take on that? Should he be on the main contracts list?
I believe so. I believe he has also only just in the last couple of weeks got onto the non-contracted list. This is some kind of new list because we have been pushing behind the scenes. We met with the acting CEO of Pharmac. I've been corresponding with the manager of devices and really pointing out just how wasteful it is for Health New Zealand not to be able to buy remanufactured items, and such a waste for the environment.
Because you are working in the industry, you are a doctor, so you support the reusing of medical supplies and what he's doing.
Oh, absolutely. One of the real ridiculous things is that the device arm of Pharmac has saved minimal money over the 13 years that it's been in existence. It's probably saved something like 1.1% of its $1.4 billion budget per year, because its whole model is wrong. In fact, in the last 2 years, it has made no savings at all. It's made a negative saving for 2023 and 2024. So the whole model needs to be looked at again. And we had hoped when David Seymour became Minister for Pharmac that this is something that he would look into. But I don't think that he's been allowed to see just how bad the device section of Pharmac is.
So, should someone else be in charge of buying medical devices for the country's health facilities?
The review done about 4 years ago looking at Pharmac said that it should go to Health New Zealand. And certainly when I worked with colleagues in the hospital, they were really dedicated at getting devices at reduced prices. They worked really hard to do that. So the procurement sections of Health New Zealand certainly in the past have proven themselves to be very effective at the job that they do, which is procuring. And what we've seen in terms of what Pharmac has achieved over the last 13 years, which is in fact so little, one can't help but feel that, yes, devices should be handed back to Health New Zealand with a more flexible model. So new innovative companies, and there will always be innovation with devices. So those companies, especially New Zealand companies, can actually get a foot in the market. Yes, competitive, but at least be able to get in the market when they have products as good as the products that MedSalv have.
I asked Oliver, what does he have to do to get on the main Pharmac list?
Well, it's a bit of a challenge at the moment because medical device management for New Zealand is up in the air between Health New Zealand and Pharmac. And Health New Zealand articulated a really good, clear pathway through which you could get new technologies or products evaluated through some committees and how they could be nationally adopted at the conference this week, which I was really impressed with, actually. But the challenge is we don't know who's going to be managing medical devices. So, it's not clear to us how we do that. And, we have been meeting with Pharmac for a long period of time, since 2018, looking at a way to put our products onto contracts that closed before we even existed. So I'm hopeful, but I don't have clarity yet.
To make it to the ultimate list, to be on the contracted list, what would that mean for you guys?
Well, to be on the list where anyone in New Zealand can just choose to buy our products without having to go through a complex procurement process and just place a purchase order and receive our products back to their hospital would be amazing. And that would open the door to, growth in terms of savings, growth in terms of jobs, like quite directly. We can immediately start employing more people. And if you know our impact profile, that means people who really do need jobs and would struggle to find them elsewhere because we employ people with barriers to employment. So that's what we're working towards. And we're really, confident we can. And, that's the sort of success that we're having in Australia.
A Kiwi company that reduces waste in hospitals has just opened a new facility in Australia, but MedSalv is struggling to get traction here, despite already saving taxpayers millions of dollars.
I find it interesting, Ollie, that you're getting success in Australia and the backing of the government, state government there, but it doesn't seem to be that same support in New Zealand. Would that be fair?
Well, actually, we have had some really good support in New Zealand. So we've had some really strong support from Callaghan Innovation to help develop and commercialise our technology to make it available to be sold to hospitals. And we've had some really strong support from New Zealand Trade and Enterprise to support our growth into Australia. But I think, you can't look past the possibility of the support of having, fair access to your own market to sell your products and test them locally with the innovative Kiwis that we want to help out.
A cheeky question, you're saving money in some parts. Are you making money for yourself?
Yeah, well, look, we're growing. So, we've made the decision to invest in Australia and grow the business, which is what we want to do. We're going for growth and we're getting it big time. And we want to make sure that New Zealand's keeping up with that because, we think that there's lots to be done here as well.
What about critics? Have you got many of those and what are they saying?
Well, I've got some nice letters in my inbox from some of the original manufacturers who don't like the fact that they lose out on revenue when we start to grow our business, because we're taking product that they would prefer have go to landfill and we're making use of it again, which impacts their market share. But I think, broadly, the health system has really got an appetite for change, and the way that we bring it and package it up in a simple manner where they can just put it in a box or a bag and we can deliver it back to them, and with a cost saving and have all those other benefits, is great.
I read a thing that one of the critics has said, this is cost cutting at the expense of care. What do you say to that?
Well, that's sort of a little bit of a disingenuous comment, because actually our products get tested more times than any product that's been batch tested. And so this is just smart use of resources. And we hold all the same certifications and probably more than most of the suppliers of the medical devices that we're providing to hospitals. So actually this is smart economics. This is sustainability. And there's a reason that we've been able to organically grow at the rate that we have. And it's because people buy into that.
And there's been absolutely no reports of any complications or infections linked to your products?
Nothing.
That's a pretty good track record.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, I get frustrated with bad customer service, and that would be terrible customer service. So we hold ourselves to a high standard and we keep ourselves there. Once people start to look inside our facilities when they come and have an opportunity to tour them, they start to recognise just the scale of the problem that we are already in the process of solving, but still have a ways to go in solving. And we've got to make more headway on that. But we also think there's opportunities to really reframe the solution so we can take it into the future and make sure healthcare is delivering more for the planet, for the patient, and more value as well. We can't have this culture of just taking all these precious resources and chucking them in the landfill, or burning them, as they do in Australia in some cases.
What would you want, what do you need, I guess, from the government to really, so that your business reaches its full potential?
I think the number one thing that we want is fair access to the market and making it competitive, because a competitive market is good for innovation, and that's what we want to do. I want to be able to say to all of those engineers who want a job at MedSalv in New Zealand, this is the right place to do your work, and we want to support you because we've got access to the market and it makes sense.
I think we need to be supporting New Zealand companies. We need to be supporting innovation, and we need to be supporting young people like Oliver who are actually making a difference in terms of innovation, benefits for the economy, and indeed, in his case, supporting a lot of people in his workplace who actually would have struggled to find work elsewhere. It really is a win-win-win company and really needs supporting.
That's all for today. The Detail is a newsroom production supported by RNZ and New Zealand On Air. Thank you to Oliver Hunt and Dr. Ruth Spearing. This episode was produced by Alexia Russell and engineered by William Saunders. I'm Amanda Gillies. Matua.